After I discovered Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, I was strangely reminded of an album cover titled Plastic Beach. Why? Because they both center around a very specific image, an island made out of rubbish, and they both do so with a mission in mind. Although they're worlds apart, Getting Over It and Plastic Beach are both trying to convey similar messages with the same metaphor. But first things first. Getting Over It is a 2017 platforming game created and narrated by Bennett Foddy. In it, you're tasked with getting a man in a cauldron to climb up a mountain. The player manipulates his Yosemite hammer, which lets you climb, pull, bounce, and swing to ledges. Getting Over It has also been described as a rage game, as its design makes it very difficult to beat. At any point in the game, the player can lose a large section of progress or fall back to the beginning, forcing them to start over. As you progress, Foddy talks about the development process of the game, as well as various philosophical topics. The design of the mountain starts off normal looking enough, but it becomes more surreal the further you go. Gorillaz is a British virtual band created in 1998 by musician Damon Albarn and artist Jamie Hewlett. The band consists of 4 members who are animated characters. The band's story is shown through their animated music videos, with each of their story arcs divided into studio albums referred to as phases. Plastic Beach is their 3rd phase, which includes music from their album of the same name. The Plastic Beach phase tells the story of the separated band members reaching a remote island while a mysterious assailant is after them. Murdoch, the self-appointed leader of the band, finds the island first. He decides to paint it pink and builds a studio on it for the band to record their next album. So how does Getting Over It and Gorillaz connect when they aren't even using the same storytelling mediums? Well, we're going to have to look at their development process to make things clearer. According to the game's store page, Getting Over It was aimed towards a certain kind of person, to hurt them. The game's creator, Bennett Foddy, talked about how older games, mainly due to technical restrictions at the time, would not save your progress and would treat the player punishingly, lamenting that later games lost the sense of perseverance that came with those old difficult designs.
And games they wanted a lot from you, daunting you, taunting you, resetting and delaying you. Players played stoically. Now everyone's turned off by that.
But with the success of games like Dark Souls, Hellblade, and Cuphead, there seems to be quite a lot of people who are attracted to that old design idea. As Foddy said in an interview, whenever you see something that disproves a strongly held design orthodoxy, it's extremely exciting because it opens up new avenues of exploration. Foddy describes the process of making B games, such as Getting Over It, as a slapdash, almost randomized process.
And B games are rough assemblages of found objects. Designers slap them together very quickly and freely, and they're often too rough and unfriendly to gain much of a following. They're built more for the joy of building them than as polished products.
But the game is too polished to be that. The game is made up of pre-made art assets, but they still feel like they're part of the same world, or made by the same modeler. The placement of the ledges seems very precise, to add to the difficulty of not falling, and sections of the game even have their own different color palettes. Foddy even talks about his use of foreshadowing in a video with Kotaku.
Like here is another little bit of environmental storytelling on the right, you see that?
Yeah, garbage.
Little garbage can. You might just be thinking, whoa, what's going on here? Is this really a mountain? Is this something else?
His voiceover dialogue in the game was pre-written, not ad-libbed. If you listen, you can hear that a lot of his narration is told through various types of poetic meters.
But on the off chance that you're playing this, what I'm saying is, trash is disposable, but maybe it doesn't have to be approachable. What's the feeling like? Are you stressed? I guess you don't hate it if you got this far, feeling frustrated. It's underrated.
Even if he worked quickly on it, he had a clear idea of what he wanted and put a lot of thought into the game, so looking for meaning in it is worth exploring. What's interesting to note is that both Bennett Foddy and Damon Albarn both note the fakeness that comes with animation, whether it's animation in a video game or music video. As Foddy writes, "This is one of the things I'm most interested in. As a game designer, the most fundamental problem you're up against is that games don't matter. They're fake. They're imaginary playgrounds." In an interview with Neil Gaiman, Jamie Hewlett and Damon Albarn explained that they created Gorillaz after watching MTV. "One day we were home watching MTV with our eyes just kind of glazed, because if you watch MTV for too long, it's a bit like hell. There's nothing of substance there, so we got this idea for a cartoon band, something that would be a comment on that. We're the generation whose stars come from pop idol and celebrity wrestling shows, and it's all a bit like a cartoon really. Albarn also wanted to criticize shows like The X Factor for creating a mindset that suggests you can get something for nothing, and that it's easy to acquire status and fame.
To be honest with you, I don't like any of that. I think that's a rubbish part of our culture, and the sooner we get rid of it, bin it, the better it is for everybody. Yeah, well,
So the Gorillaz is a commentary on the falseness that comes with trying to gain fame and fortune without effort.
Gorillaz were to become the assassins of useless celebrity.
Instead of creating a band with real people who would have to create a false image of themselves for the public, Hewlett and Albarn cut out the middleman by creating a band made up of fictional characters.
We were sitting on a couch watching MTV, and we just become sick of it all, and we just wanted to do something that was better than that.
So we thought, do something and remove the celebrity element and create 10 celebrities and manufacture a band but do it properly.
Being in a band can make you feel like a cartoon, so just become a cartoon, accept it.
Because of the nature of Gorillaz being animated, very little of their action can be accidental. When Murdoch talks about hitting the lead singer, Stuart Pott, with his car, that's not Murdoch accidentally saying something incriminating in the middle of an interview. It's a pre-written idea that was written as part of their backstory, unless it was ad-libbed by Murdoch's voice actor. Murdoch goes on to say that the car accident is what helped make Stuart a successful lead singer.
But I'll tell you what, when he stood up, wow, what an image. Tall, pretty, blue spiky hair.
No eyeballs?
No eyeballs. I knew that he had to be the front man.
He says that Stuart looks cooler without eyeballs, making a statement on the absurdity of audiences' tastes. When Stuart starts texting in the middle of a live concert, it's not something that's spontaneous. It's a joke that was animated beforehand. Everything is pre-planned and set up in a specific way to make a point. So how does this all relate to islands? Well, firstly, there's the island of Plastic Beach, created by the Gorillaz. Then there's Getting Over It. Although Getting Over It's pile of junk is described in the game as a mountain, rather than an island, it's definitely a mountain on an island. There's telltale signs, like the water at the leftmost edge of the map, which implies that the mountain is next to a beach. This is further implied by the seaside changing room you pass at an early area of the map, as well as the lighthouse you can see in the distance. Now, Foddy refers to the body of water as a lakeside, not an ocean.
Now, you've conquered the ice cliff, the platforms, the church, and the rectory, the living room and the factory, the playground, the construction site, the granite rocks, and the lakeside.
But let's remember that lakes with islands and mountains exist too. Islands are an old symbol. From the Odyssey to the island of Dr. Moreau to Myst, islands have gone through a lot of reiterations in storytelling. Getting Over It and Gorillaz both use a very specific version of the island symbol, an island made of trash. Then what does an island made of trash symbolize? Going back to Gorillaz, the band's views of disposable culture can be summed up by Murdoch Nichols during an episode of MTV Cribs.
I'll tell you what, I've seen quite a few episodes of MTV Cribs, and every house is the same. What's all that about? The first thing these peasants do when they get any money is buy some tacky show home and then fill it up with all this shit. And they call it culture. They wouldn't know what a culture was if it jumped up and bit them, and took them on holiday.
Adding to that, the songs on the album Plastic Beach connect to the theme of seeing something that appears to be of great value but in reality is junk, such as the song Rhinestone Eyes, rhinestones being commonly used as fake imitation diamonds, or the song Some Kind of Nature, which has lyrics about people wearing phony clothes and metals made of glue. And in a twist of life-imitating art, the Gorillaz co-creators refused a film adaptation of their work in 2005 due to creative differences, with the studio wanting to make the Gorillaz less dark and more like The Wizard of Oz. We lost all interest doing it as soon as we started meeting with studios and talking to these Hollywood executive types. We just weren't on the same page. We said, stuff it, let's sit on the idea until we can do it ourselves, and maybe even raise the money ourselves. Recently, news has been released that Alburn and Hewlett's patience has paid off, as they've got an upcoming animated series. Hewlett will direct the first and last episode. Gorillaz' on-screen and behind-the-screen stories tell us quite clearly that they're against the idea of chasing quick fame and fortune, if it means sacrificing their artistic passion and integrity. The Gorillaz tried to warn us that going after what's shiny and trendy will lead to emptiness.
But you won't take the road to Glee. I've got to ask you about this before. This is all over the news, that you said something, that you were quoted that saying that Gorillaz music will never be used on the TV show Glee.
No, it wouldn't. I would never agree to that.
Why? Why not? What do you have against Glee?
It's a homogenization of everything, and it ultimately will lead to emptiness.
But it costs you in the pocketbook to say no to things like that.
Well, so what?
From way back where you are, it might look like luxury, But as you get closer, you'll see it for what it is. A horrible lump of plastic that's been painted pink. It's a fake luxury, transparent. So maybe it's, I don't know, a warning or a message. Does that make sense?
In the world of the Gorillaz, getting instant fame leads to emptiness, and luxury in art is unobtainable. The idea of creating a work so great that you'll be satisfied and you'll never have to create another thing ever is untrue. Wanting praise and wanting to create is a hunger. You feed it, but you never permanently satisfy it. It'll always come back. You must simply keep creating. You thirst for growth, but forever. But grow how? By making more? By making bigger projects? Shinier ones? Ones that give you a bigger following? How does one reach a level of artistic immortality? Well, first we have to talk about Diogenes. Near the top of the mountain, Foddy reveals that the man in the pot is Diogenes.
Have you thought about who you are in this? Are you the man in the pot, Diogenes?
The image of putting a video game Diogenes in a pot is a reference to an anecdote regarding the real-life Greek philosopher. Once upon a time, the city of Corinth heard news that they were going to be under attack. The citizens went into a panic and began preparing for the upcoming battle. Diogenes, ignoring all the fuss, began rolling his pithos, or pot, which he lived in, up and down a hill. Someone asked why he was performing such a pointless task, to which he replied, "I'm just trying to make myself look as busy as the rest of you." Diogenes can be considered to be one of the first trolls to enter history, and while he certainly ridiculed human beings, Diogenes did not think human nature was to blame for corruption in society. Instead, he believed that people were, by nature, good and virtuous, but that they became weaker from social norms and value. Diogenes believed these artificial constraints turned potentially strong and independent individuals into obedient, weakened people. He attempted to illustrate through his actions how ridiculous and unimportant society's values were. Diogenes became one of the founders of cynicism, a school of thought that believes the purpose of life is to live through rigorous training and to gain happiness by living in a way which is natural for themselves, rejecting all conventional desires for wealth, power, and fame. Now, doesn't that sound familiar?
It's a homogenization of everything, and it ultimately will lead to emptiness.
When games were new, they wanted a lot from you. Daunting you, taunting you, resetting and delaying you. Players played stoically. Now everyone's turned off by that.
So if Diogenes pushed the belief of hard work and rejecting normal desires, why did the video game Getting Over It decide to include him as a focal point? Well, the game certainly commentates on the growing trend of hand-holding in video games, not just in its difficult design, but in Foddy's voiceovers throughout.
Most obstacles in video game worlds are fake. You can be completely confident in your ability to get through them once you have the correct method, or the correct equipment, or just by spending enough time. In this context, it's tempting to make friendly content that's gentle, that lets you churn through it but not earn it. Why make something demanding if it just gets piled up in the landfill, filed in with the bland things?
He then goes on to theorize that the player, like himself, enjoys the challenge of difficult games.
We have the same taste, you and I. It's not ambition, it's ambition's opposite. An obdurate mission to taste defeat. You'll feel bad if you win.
As the player slowly ascends up the mountain, it becomes clear that Foddy is trying to say something through the dialogue and the game mechanics. It's your continued failures that give your success meaning. Bennett says several quotes that reference this idea.
An orange is sweet, juicy fruit locked inside a bitter peel. That's not how I feel about a challenge. I only want the bitterness. It's coffee. It's grapefruit. It's licorice.
The game is very difficult. The player will fail a lot. But that failure is the game's point. Foddy also talks about disposable culture.
Maybe this is what digital culture is. A monstrous mountain of trash, the ash heap of creativity's fountain. A landfill with everything we ever thought of in it. Grand, infinite, and unsorted. Discarded, forgotten, unrecycled, muddled, rotten, untitled. Everything's fresh for about 6 seconds, until some newer thing beckons, and we hit refresh. And there's years of persevering, disappearing into the pile, out of style, out of sight.
Basically, Foddy is trying to teach a lesson about the dangers of making art too hand-holding to be remembered, too easy to be consumed, too disposable, no thinking required, morals too generic to be thought-provoking. Not just in games, but art and entertainment in general. In a world where trends, fads, and bright, loud, shiny, disposable culture is hard to ignore around us, we've become a part of what Diogenes tried to warn us against. We've been conditioned through simply the sheer amount of art there is to have short attention spans. Only something truly special to us can hold our gaze. When we're taught writing, filmmaking, pitching, or any form of storytelling, we are told to grab people's attention and to get to the point as soon as possible. While that's not bad advice at all, there's a danger of forgetting other things, about taking risks, giving the viewer a still, silent moment to think, or leaving questions open-ended for them to answer. If you take a chance and stop holding the viewer's hand, they must think for themselves. They must contemplate, reflect, and search. If they find something meaningful, that will give your work more immortality than anything else can. That is what creators must strive for. That is what will make art and artists grow, not by being the greatest, but by being meaningful, something that lasts, something that refuses to decay. The Gorillaz has managed to resonate and feel relevant since its creation in 1998, and while it's too soon to say how Getting Over It will be remembered years from now, it's so far developed a cult following, with its audience discussing its meaning and intent. Let us hope that we can touch others' hearts and minds as well. While there's many ways to interpret a work, this is one take on the recurring symbol of an island made of junk. The mountain in Getting Over It represents disposable culture. Climbing it represents the time, effort, and care in finding a Zen moment among it all. To go find a moment of contemplation in something that could easily be written off or overlooked. It's a piece of advice not just in games but in life as well. On the other end of things, the island of Plastic Beach represents the fakeness that comes with instant fame. When you look at the island from a distance, it looks beautiful, but when you go up close to it, you can see that it's plastic pollution stuck together and painted pink. You want it to be an ideal paradise, but it isn't real. It's emptiness, and reaching the island represents coming to terms with this. It's a rejection of being rewarded quickly and without effort. And that is the philosophy behind Getting Over It and Plastic Beach. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, please comment and share this video with others as it helps my channel grow. Ta-ra!